welcome everyone. Welcome back to our new show, Unscripted on
America's Islamic Radio. I'm your host, Hannah.
And I'm your host, Maria, and let's get right into it. So what is today's topic, Hannah?
Today we are going to be talking about prayer and the impact it has had on our lives. So Maria, what does prayer mean to you?
That's such a deep question, I think. So what does prayer mean to me? I think prayer to me is a spiritual connection that I have with someone higher than me. It's more like a security blanket. It's something where I know I have this higher being to go to for all my problems, someone who has control over all my issues, someone who can fix everything, control everything, just make everything great again. That's what prayer is to me. It's a form of conversation which I get to have with someone who can actually make a difference in my life, and it just makes me feel safe and secure. Like, fine, I can't deal with this whole situation right now. Let me just go dump it onto God, who can control it and fix it. What does prayer mean to you?
Prayer to me is more than just praying 5 times a day, but like you said, it's like a security blanket. So whenever I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, I feel so safe. I feel like I'm in this safe space where Allah, even if I tell him or not, like, he knows everything that goes on. Not even just in the external world, but he knows all the emotions, all the thoughts, everything that goes on internally. And I love that. Like, I just love thinking about that because I don't have to explain, like, as much as I would think I have to, but rather, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already knows. And even before I ask for something, he already knows what I'm thinking. And so I find so much solace and just, like, I feel so at peace when I'm praying. It's amazing. Like, not even just praying 5 times a day, but just going to, like, sajda, right?
Yeah.
Which is, like,
my favorite.
Is that prostration in English?
Prostration. It's when you bend down and kneel your head against the ground to show that you're not higher than the ultimate creator.
Yeah. So
ultimately, no matter who you are in life, you kneel down to the one God.
Yeah. So, like, you may have such a high status in, whatever field or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, there's a higher being up there who's actually given you, what you have today. And, like, I feel like I can't thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough for that, like, all the blessings I've given. Even, like, the shortcomings that I have, I feel like I used to think that making mistakes was, like, a bad thing. Like, I used to, like, we cry at our failures. Like, we cry at, like, thinking that, oh my God, like, how could I be so, like, stupid and make that mistake, right?
Yeah.
But, like, you realize how much you learn from those mistakes, and then you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for, like, bringing such events into your life that actually made you realize more about yourself, more about the people around you, and, like, I feel like more about just how the world works in general. And in the end, that, like, taking those life lessons with you one by one, like, makes you a better person. So I feel like through prayer, I learned so much. Like, I released so much. But, I feel so at peace. Like, I feel like a huge burden has just been, like, removed from my chest. And it's an amazing, it's, like, great to feel so liberated, just by, like, talking to God.
Right. What I love about prayer is it extends so much beyond just the 5 daily prayers. So I think when looking at it from a non-Muslim perspective into Islam, I think what most people see as prayer is just like 5 times daily prayer, maybe even going to Hajj might be considered prayer. But prayer, I think it is across religion, universal. Prayer is just your daily activities. When you lose your keys and you are like, oh my God, where is it? And then you do a little short prayer and, like, there's a little, like, feeling in your heart where you're like, God, please, my keys gotta be here. Or, like, when you're about to take an exam and there's just this genuine, like, moment where you have with someone higher than you where you're like, please, I really need this A, I need this. Or when something bad happens in your life, someone passes away and you just have a moment with yourself where you need to talk to someone just in your own head where you're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Or it's going to be okay, or I hope this person goes to heaven. Those small conversations that we have thinking we're having them with just someone in our brain, that's Allah, that's God. He's right there next to you. And in Islam, what do they say? Where, like, Allah's, like, closer to you than your some muscle. And,
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I know what you're talking about. I'm not sure the exact quote, but yeah, I know.
But what they tend to say in Islam is that like Allah is the closest to you, closer than your like the closest vein to your heart or something like that. So like Allah is always there, and that is reflected through prayer. Where it doesn't have to be Fajr time, it does not have to be Zohar time. You can pray at any time, in the middle of the night, in the midst of the day, in between a crowd, alone at night. You can pray at any moment, and He's always there.
Yeah.
24/7. You know, and I think that is just the most important part about prayer to me, which is that I always have someone when I mess up, when in times of joy, in times of hardship, when I like totally screwed up and do not know how to like move forward. It's just I have Allah. Like I don't even know what to say a lot of times, but I just feel so at peace knowing that I can just go kneel down to Him and beg Him, and He will forgive me, and I have that. I have that.
Yeah, prayer is like just thinking about how prayer is knowing that there is like someone who's greater than me looking out for me. It's you feel good, like you feel secure. You feel like when you go out there, when you put yourself out there in the real world, when you're doing whatever you're doing, whether it be school, work, you know, being with family, you know that like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always looking out for you. He won't ever leave you hanging.
Mm-hmm.
He's always going to be there for you to answer your prayers. And even if all of those prayers don't get answered, I think it's important to know that there's a reason why they weren't answered. There's a reason why things don't go our way. And through prayer, you learn to accept that. You know, because we're created so that like we have expectations in this world. We have expectations of ourselves, of people around us, of our loved ones. But if certain things don't go the way that we expect them to, we tend to kind of like focus on the negative rather on the positive that came out of it. And then but through prayer actually, you realize that the negative was meant to be there for you so that you could get something even more positive out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like this whole, like, once you go into it, you just keep going down. It's like a whole, like, what is it, like a ditch, I guess? That's, like, such a bad word. Yeah, like a spiral. That's a better word to use.
Deep. It has multiple layers where, like, once you open up to one thing, you realize there's so much more.
Yeah, and it's just, I keep using this word, but, like, liberation is exactly how you feel through prayer. You may not pray 5 times a day. There shouldn't be anyone to judge you for it, but like because you know, like everyone knows their God differently. Like everyone knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala differently. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a different connection with different people. You know,
and
like
the same Allah, regardless of
there's one God, but He has different connections with his different creations.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing because you feel that personal connection. You know, it's not just like, oh, I'm one of the many creations. Like because you can open your heart out to all the personal experiences, the personal mistakes you've made, you feel like He's understanding. Like I feel like you hear Him, or like you feel Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's presence, but you feel it to a very specific level.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Because your problems are so specific. So it's not like He's just they're generally like, okay. But you feel like that very specific connection that I feel like everyone feels differently.
Right. And this extends way beyond Islam. So there are actually studies that prove that meditation, which is essentially prayer, which is being in one with yourself and with a higher creator, or just being in one in general, it actually helps sleep disorders, prevents a lot of mental illnesses, or at least helps alleviate some of them. This is not to say that prayer is a substitute to therapy.
That's very important.
Yes.
That's actually really important.
This leads us into our next point, which is mental health. And I think mental health is a growing issue in the U.S. right now and globally. I think there's a lot more people with a lot more anxiety, a lot more depression, bipolar disorder. A lot of more disorders are developing amongst people. And I don't know if they're just more diagnosed now, or if they actually are increasing. But I think more people have anxiety now than they did before. And one of the reasons for that might be social media, where they're unable to disconnect, where they're unable to just throw everything away and be in one with themselves and with their creator. And that might be one of the reasons why they're so anxious all the time, have depression and other mental health issues. So I think this brings us back to prayer and how prayer forces you to stand in one position, look at one spot, or close your eyes and put all like your technology away. It forces you to focus. It forces you to be in one with yourself and with Allah. And I think just having that 5 times a day, and also the multiple, other times of the day where you can pray anytime you want, but that the forced 5 times a day, the required, it kind of forces you to be in one. It forces you to disconnect. It forces you to be at peace. And that's something important, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to say this is a disagreement, but I feel like it's just like a lack of terms. So you were saying like you're being forced to focus. I feel like a lot of people, like even when I'm praying sometimes, like yes, I'm away from technology, I'm away from everything else when I'm praying, but there's still like, I don't know why, like I still can't focus sometimes,
Right.
So I'm not necessarily like, even if I disconnect from everything, why am I not focused? You know what I mean? Like I always think that to myself. And I feel like if I don't force it, if I don't like just, because then that distracts you even more. Like you thinking, oh my God, well, like why can't I focus? Why can't I just like think about, okay, I'm praying to Allah, like I need to focus, I need to focus on my prayers, I need to focus on what I'm reciting. But I feel like if you just let it be and if you give it time, if you just make the effort to pray and to just think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is listening to me and I'm doing the best that I can, I think everything just slowly falls into place,
I think you brought up something good, and I want to correct myself. What I meant to say was not that you necessarily force yourself to focus, but the idea is that since all other distractions are taken away, such as your phone, it kind of puts you in a state where you are with just your own natural thoughts.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah. So, so this is not to say that therapy is invalid or that prayer is just a substitute for that, but it's almost as if prayer is an added gift you just get, just for being human, just for existing. Like you have that 24/7 therapy just available at your leisure, and that's what I think is very beautiful.
Yeah, and like I like that you brought up that how prayer isn't a substitute for therapy, because in a lot of cultures, and not saying that Islam is a culture, Islam is a religion, so let's not confuse that. In other cultures, people tend to say that, okay, if someone's like feeling really down, someone can be chronically depressed, but like no one recognizes that, or people in their family do recognize it, but they like think that prayer is the solution. Like, oh yeah, you've just been disconnected from, God or whatever it is for too long.
Read Ayatul Kursi.
Yeah, just like read the Quran, pray, and that's culture. That's like what cultures say. But people shouldn't tell you that. Like I feel like everyone that thinks that like we're here to tell you that, like that's not true. It's not wrong to pray 5 times a day, to do all the right things but still feel depressed, right? Because they're not necessarily like, you don't have to be like not depressed and be like a perfect Muslim. I think I used the two right. Yeah. You could still be really, really like down, feel down and stuff like that. And that has nothing to do with your faith isn't strong enough.
That's just a constant human battle.
It's just exactly. Yeah. It's just a human, like you feel it because you're human.
Right.
And so therapy, in that case, like therapy or talking to someone, but actually reaching out for help is so important. And
it's so crucial. Like that is not something that should be ignored due to any culture, because that can actually have detrimental effects.
Yeah, it makes it worse, especially like, I know for me, like if there's something I want to say to someone, right? And like I'm waiting longer and longer to actually say it, it like adds up like so much tension. It like builds up inside, and it's hard to like bear with it. It gets really unbearable, and I can't even imagine someone who actually has a serious disorder feeling that way, because it's serious, and some people don't understand it. But prayer in that case isn't the only way to get out of, like, yeah, definitely pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask him to definitely help you or make you feel differently, but it's not like prayer isn't magic where like you're instantly going to feel better. In that case, you want to take steps to actually recover from things like that. You want to take steps that will actually be good for your health.
I think prayer is just more like having an ultimate friend. It's like you slowly and gradually, in the beginning, I think I still have a lot of trouble focusing in prayer, but it's gotten better over the years. Um, so I think prayer is like ultimate, like in the beginning you might not be able to focus, but it's just slowly and gradually you push on and on until you build that focus. And once you have that, you feel like you always have a friend, Allah, God, to rely on. And I think that is what it is. It's just this feeling of security, like, okay, when everything goes wrong, I have God. Ultimately, I am putting my trust into Him, and He will fix everything. And that's what prayer is. But you can still have your mental illness or depression, whatever it is, that you constantly keep fighting with, fighting with through therapy, your medication, whatever it is that you are required to do. But having prayer is just a side benefit. It's just something to eventually improve you, and inshallah, like ultimately, like fix you. Yeah.
Yeah, ultimately, like prayer is a very personal thing to a person, like very personal, and in no way should that like stop you from reaching out for help when it comes to serious problems or serious emotions you're feeling, because yes, like I did talk about how prayer is like definitely it releases like a huge burden off of me. But at the same time, like, it doesn't mean that I pray, like, if I pray 5 times a day, all my life's problems are fixed, And not saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't working, like, He's not answering my prayers, but it's saying that this life is a test at the end of the day. And we, like, forget that. We, like, and we start...
get too dissolved into our day-to-day issues where we think, wait, no, this is forever. But, it's
Yeah.
not.
So, like, what's the point of this life if, like, there isn't a constant struggle that I'm facing? Like, one problem ends, another problem starts. Like that's life, and we have to accept that. But at the same time, remember that you're not alone. Like you said, like I love how we're like bouncing up. Like this is great. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your ultimate friend. He knows you better than anyone else, better than your parents, better than yourself even. Because He knows exactly what you're going through, what moment, even before you realize it sometimes.
Yeah. And going off the point of challenges. So I think humans are required to have challenges because when you face challenges, you constantly try to get over the challenges or like improve your situation, and that's what keeps advancing our society. It's survival of the fittest. You gotta have issues so that you can battle it out and be the ultimate human, ultimate version of yourself. And like that's kind of the point of humans. So like not having challenges kind of just like keeps pushing us back. So we need to have challenges. We got it. That's what pushes us to be a better human being. Like we put our kids in grade 1, they have challenges, eventually they overcome it, and the next thing you know, they're struggling in grade 2 again. And then like, just when they get over that, it's because they're pushing. God is trying to push you forward in life. He's trying to push you towards something amazing, like the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're going to conclude with this quote that I read, which goes around the lines of basically saying that life isn't necessarily about finding yourself, but it's using those challenges to actually build yourself. And at the end of the day, the goal of being Muslim is Jannah. So this world is temporary, but these challenges come forth to challenge you to see whether, to kind of draw that line between what's important and what's not necessarily important. You come to realize what matters at the end of the day. So thank you so much for tuning into our show, Unscripted, again on
America's Islamic Radio. I'm your host, Maria.
And I'm your host, Hannah.
Don't forget to like, comment, and let us know how you thought this episode was and what you want to see in the future. Thank you all for continuing to support us and for all the love we've gotten ever since we started.
Assalamu alaikum.